Okay, so kind of what I'm gonna go over is just kind of how to set up a basic uh, symphony blog. I figure most people will kind of want to do something like that or use Symfony for just basically posting just real basic stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and install Symfony real quick. Oops. So right now I have nothing in here. Okay. And this is what the actual website is going to be. Right now there's nothing. Um, this is the database. As you can see, there's nothing here. Actually, while that is downloading the Symfony files, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to show you some doctrine migrations later. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and create the table. And this table is what stores the versions. And you just name it migration version. You got one field version. It's an integer. You don't need to have it auto increment or anything like that. So there's our table. Okay, and as I kind of go on, if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask in the chat, and I will try to answer them the best I can. I also plan to do a couple more videos, possibly doing other stuff in more detail. So if there's something that you want to see and you want to see it in more detail, just let me know and I can get that done for you. Okay, so that is done. So the first thing you want to do is you want to create a project. And so we don't have anything in our root directory, so let's go ahead and get that set up. Symphony data. Okay, and what this did is it actually made all those. So next thing we want to do now that we have a project is you want to make sure the cache in your log drive can be written to, because Symfony uses those a lot. Next thing, what I'm doing now is I'm actually going to copy some files that Symfony uses for displaying in the web toolbar and a couple other things. So okay. Alright, and now there's all our files. And I want to set up a couple things using the command line, but first I kind of want to show you what I'm gonna set up. So that's the name of the project that we actually made, and want to change that so we can do that on the command line. And here's all the commands. So we actually want to do that with quotes, so we don't get an error, and it actually changes the author. Another thing is, when you want to set up your database, this is how you do it. And I don't have any of this stuff actually saved, so I gotta type it all out by hand. Just give me one sec. Username and password, which I really don't recommend you do that, but since I'm just using my local computer, it's not that big of a deal. I don't really care. But that's how you would change that. And you can add whatever you want here, add as many as you want here. Okay. So the next thing we want to actually do is, we don't have any apps. We've got a project, we just don't have any applications within that project. So we want to go ahead and get that taken care of. So let's go ahead and do that. So here's all the commands, and this is what I want, is the generate app one. So generate, and the first app we want to make is we're just gonna call it our front end. And I actually want to go ahead and create a backend app, which is going to be used for administration, editing posts, various things like that. So there's our two apps, and if we go here, our Symphony project has been created. And if you want more information, you can actually go to your app, whatever you named your app, and then _dev. And this is your web kind of debug toolbar. You can get all kinds of information from there. It's really handy. So, and to get to the back end, it's the same as the front end, except you just have it named backend, and created that one. Now we need to actually create some modules. So if we look at our we don't have anything there. And right here, this is the directory structure of Symphony, kind of how that goes. You're probably not going to be able to see it very well, but you've got various different folders. And the one that we want is going to be in the apps folder, and you can actually see our front end and back end app. And then within those folders, you're going to have a couple different ones. And what we're interested in is creating a module. So if you go back up here, you can see here's the module. And if you're ever curious kind of what stuff does or how stuff should work, you can always just do a help in front of whatever command you want or task name. Or so this tells us what it does and how to actually do it. So front end is actually our application, and then the article is going to be the module that's actually created. So what I usually do is the first one, I just name it default, which I forgot to add front end, which is our app. So if I come back up here and look in the modules, we've got the default one. And we want actions. And if you guys have trouble seeing this, I can increase the font a little bit more. So now if I refresh the front end, which is this is going to be the public, what people are going to see when they actually come to our site, you're not going to see anything here because it's running this command and there's nothing in it. And the template it uses is index success. So if we just put up some stuff here, save it, reload the page, there's what we put in. And the templates are named based on the action that you have. So this one's execute index, that's the default. Any module that you go to, it's usually always going to have an index action. And the templates are named index success, index error, index whatever you want, but for right now and what you're going to use most of the time, it's always going to be whatever success. Okay, so now that we've got that stuff kind of set up, let's go ahead and start setting up some of the stuff for the database. So how you do that is you'll see a folder called config. You open that up and you'll see another folder called doctrine, and you'll see a schema file. You can put your database schema in this file, however I really wouldn't recommend it. What I usually do is create a new YAML file, and I usually name them whatever I'm going to name the table. So in this case I'm going to name the table post, and this is just a real basic doctrine table. And I will kind of go over this here in a sec after I type everything out. Okay, what this basically says is I want to create a table in the database that is going to be named post, and it's going to be timestampable. So what that means is anytime a record is created or updated, doctrine is automatically going to add, if it's created, you're going to have a created at field, and that's going to be the time that that record was created. Then you're going to have an updated at field, and anytime you update that record, that updates that field, and they're both timestamp, which I will actually show you that once the table is created in the database. And all I want this to have in it is a title and then a body. Our title is a string with a maximum of 255 characters, and the body is a large character object, which that's what that means. So now it comes in where our doctrine tables or our doctrine migrations kind of come in. So the first thing you want to do when you want to do the migrations is it's best to start whenever you're starting a new project. Well, actually, before I do that, I actually need to build a couple things. And Symfony has a lot of tasks that you can run from the command line. And oops, what I just did was, if you look in Doctrine, I did build. And whenever you do build all classes, that actually creates the forms that you'll use. So right now I've got post forms. I use post filters, so they have filter forms already in. Now that that's done, I need to generate some migration files. So I ran those, and that actually created a couple migration files. And what doctrine migrations are is they're basically version control for your database. So let's say you are working with your database, you want to update it with another table, or you want to add another field to a table, you can do it really easy. And then whenever you deploy your project to a production server, you just run the command and it'll update the database, which I'll show you that stuff here in a little bit. So now we actually need to add the records or add the tables to the database, and how we do it like that is PHP symphony doctrine. And it's as simple as doing PHP symphony doctrine migrate, and you can see it upgraded from version 0 to 1, which you can see right there. And we can actually put it back down to 0. And so once you have your tables version like this, you can go to any version you want. And let's go ahead and check out the database now. And here's my table. So Symfony automatically created my post table without me even having to come in here and mess with anything. Okay, and if we look here, we can see that it's upgraded the version, or incremented the version to 1. So it can go up and down depending on how many versions you have or what version you want to do. There it goes. And you remember how I put the timestampable on? Doctrine automatically created those two, and then also created a primary key. And all I had to do is tell it I just wanted title and body. So, alright. So, kind of what we want now is having all this stuff is actually kind of cool. But because we're doing kind of like a blog, we want to have it password protected. We don't want just anybody getting in and creating posts and all that good stuff. So the next thing that I actually want to do is, this is the Symphony's website. So you go here, click on plugins, and we're actually going to go ahead and install SF Doctrine Guard plugin. So you click on that, find the README, and it'll tell you kind of how to do it. So I'm just going to copy this command. And there it goes. It is installing the SF Doctrine Guard plugin. Okay. And if we look in our plugins folder, you'll actually see the SF Doctrine Guard plugin. Let me close a couple of these windows real quick. Okay. Now we need to continue installing it, so you read. Okay, and because we use the plugin install command, Symfony actually already enabled the plugin for us. But if you installed it another way, like downloaded the files or anything like that, you would need to do it yourself. Which, there it is. That plugin is now enabled. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and continue. We don't have to worry about doing all that, inserting building models and stuff right now. So go ahead and continue installing. Okay. I'll go over fixtures here in 1 second. Okay. So basically all I did was copy one of the files that came with that plugin to one of these folders. It should have fixtures. Okay. So if you go to data fixtures, you're going to see a file called sfguard.yaml. What this is actually doing is you can edit the stuff here, and whenever you load this data, this will put it right into the database. So remember username and password. Okay. Okay, now we want to actually go ahead and enable some of the modules that came with this plugin. And it kind of tells you on that page where to put them and what part of your application to put them in. And a lot of this stuff is just copy paste. If you just read the instructions, it's super easy. if you want to be able to have it remember you, this is what this one does, which actually I'm not even going to worry about that right now. This is actually important, is and if I'm going too fast or if you guys have questions, just let me know. And a lot of this stuff probably doesn't make sense right now, but once I get done doing it, you'll see kind of how it all relates to each other. Okay. And okay. Here's our backend, which we want this to be secure. The entire backend we want secure. So how you do that is apps backend config, then you've got a security.yaml file. And all you do is change this to true, save it, and once you come back to the page, it's going to tell you that you need to log in. Which we'll go ahead and set some of that stuff up here in a sec. But let me come back here, make sure that I've got everything. And what this is kind of going over is just kind of extra functionality, extra things you can do with this plugin. There's actually quite a bit of stuff you can do. Okay, so what I need to do now is get the tables created in the database. So right now there's nothing there. Okay, and what this command does is it actually checks your YAML files with kind of what's in the database, or actually it caches what you had before, like your previous doctrine version files, and it checks those and checks what YAML file or what's in your YAML files right now, and it just generates YAML file or doctrine version files that can upgrade and downgrade depending on where you're at. Okay, so now we need to get this stuff inserted into the database. So doctrine, and I'm going to do another build all classes because we haven't built any of those forms that have came with the doctrine guard plugin. And then I also want to do a migration. And I believe I can also do this, maybe? We'll find out. Nope. Which if you do something and it complains, then it'll tell you why. Which okay, so PHP Symfony Doctrine build, you want to build all your classes, you want to migrate it, and then this last part is actually going to load that file that had the username, password, all that stuff in it. So let's see, there we go. And it actually tells you what it's doing. So up here it tells you it's creating the model classes, your form classes, your filter form classes. Then we migrated from version 1 to 3, and then it loaded the fixtures or the data with username, password, all that stuff. It's kind of good for testing and setting things up. So if we come back, we'll actually see all these tables just got created. And if we look at our migration version, it's up to version 3, which matches this. Okay. Okay, so next thing we want to do is actually create a couple modules for the backend. So if you remember from last time, we did that by PHP Symphony, generate module, our application name, and then what we want that module to actually be. Oops. Guess what I forgot to do? Where's it at? Right here. What I forgot to do is actually add this piece of information to our settings file. So actually, I want to kind of stop here for a sec and kind of show you guys what happens when things go wrong. Is you get this nice kind of error message report, and it shows you kind of what's going on, kind of what went wrong and where it went wrong. So that's what all this stuff is. And what it said is it couldn't find this information. So it was actually looking for a function here called execute login. Yeah. And what this actually does is say, hey, go to this module and run this action. Oops. So if we refresh the page now, it should ask us to log in, which it didn't. And that is because I forgot to enable the module that actually lets us log in and out. There we go. Okay, so there we go. Which right now this looks like crap because we actually, whenever you install a new plugin, a lot of the times the plugins come with like style sheets, images, things like that. So you actually need to publish those assets to the website to where it can actually grab those files and use them. And how you do that is by just running PHP Symfony plugin :publish assets. Now, when we reload the page, it looks pretty. But we don't really have a real nice navigation. We don't even have a navigation. So while that page is loading, if you remember back to the fixtures, this information that we have here is actually going to match the stuff on here. So here's our permission list. Here's our permissions. This is what we loaded into the database. So what I actually want to do real quick is go ahead and make a menu, kind of like a little navigation bar for us to use. So going to come in to your apps, backend, modules, default, templates. Let me close some of these other ones. So I'm not sure if you guys can make it out on there, but there's apps, backend, modules, default, templates. And what this is actually checking for is in your template files, Symfony actually gives you a couple different objects that you can play with, and one of them is the actual user object. And so we don't want to give people a navigation unless they're logged in. So that's why I'm putting that right there like that. Okay. Symfony actually comes with a lot of really useful helper commands. One of them is link to. Okay, and I will explain this piece of code in a second. But what this basically says is you want to link to this URL and have this as the name. So if we come back, load the page, you'll see there it is, users list. Now, you're probably asking where and how I came up with this and what this actually is, but Symfony uses what's called routes or roots, or however you want to pronounce it, doesn't really matter. And you can actually see a large list of those. I believe it is this command. And what it's saying is we want to check all the routes for our backend. And here they are. You've got home page, all this wonderful stuff. These are actually the name. This is the method, and this is the URL that basically will match it. So the one that I picked was this one right here, sfguard user, and that'll actually link to this page. So you can see backend underscore dev.php guard users, and this SF format, you can actually name them anything you want. Like if you want to have a bunch of HTML files, Symfony knows hey, this is a HTML file, you can set them up. I've set some up before to actually do JSON. So you just name it .json. And as you can see, Symfony is actually smart enough to put this in JSON. So yeah, that's pretty awesome. So let's go back here. So it just kind of helps you with doing like web friendly URLs, all that kind of awesome stuff. So let me come back to here and finish up some of these links. And there's the user one, that's the group one, and that's the permission one. A lot of the others you don't even need to worry about. Everything's kind of handled automatically for the most part. So if I refresh the page, yeah, I put this in the wrong place. So this brings me to a good point, is the way Symfony does the templates and does the layouts and stuff is you actually have a layout which encompasses kind of everything, and then these templates, the index.success.php, those actually get put into a layout file. So if you go to apps, backend, templates, layout, we actually want to put the code in here for navigation bar. And if you open it up, you're going to see this line of code. PHP echo SF content. That's actually the contents of this file, which right now we don't have anything in. So now if we reload it, we'll have a nav bar up here. There you go. You can click on it, go back and forth. But right now, what's going on right here, all this information is just the SFGuard Doctrine plugin. But we created a table earlier called posts, but we can't really do anything with it right now. So what we actually want to do is create something that looks like this, that we can add new posts, we can batch delete posts, we can search for posts. So here's how we do this. Symfony actually comes with an admin generator, is what it's called. Give me 1 second, I'll kind of explain it a little bit more. It's hard for me to type and talk at the same time. It should be a skill that I need to work on. But what we're saying is we're telling Doctrine to generate an admin kind of backend module. We're going to put it in the backend application, and the model that we're going to use is post, which post is that table that we created. Okay, now how do we get to that? Where was it created at? Is if you refresh your modules in your backend now, or if you look at the folders in your backend modules folder, you'll actually see another one called post. And what happened once I ran that command was, if you go to backend config, go to routing.yaml file, you're actually going to see it created a route. So if we actually look at the routes again, you'll actually see all these routes that were just created. So we want to hit the post, which there it is. So let's actually go ahead and add this to the layout. And it's actually best to use routes like this. These correspond with these names. So that's why we put at post. And you put at post new, and that's actually will go to this page. Once it loads, this page. Okay. Now, let's say you want to create your own route. That's the name of it. That's how you get to it. So, oops. If I did that, it'll actually won't do anything right now, but that's how it does it. And you want to give it, you want to tell it what module and what action you want it to go to. So that's where this stuff comes in. So let's go ahead and finish this up a little bit. Okay, and it's saying go to the module default and run the action blah. So we come back to our module default, our actions.class.php, and if we create if we create a function, it'll work. However, because I haven't created a template file for this action, when I reload this page, it's going to give me a different error message. It's going to tell me the template blah success doesn't exist or it can't be read. And that is because we don't have a blah success template. So we need to make one real quick. And we reload the page again. And there, everything works fine. Let's go back to the post list, which I'm really horrible on front-end design, so that's why I'm not taking a lot of time to work on this little nav bar right here. So let's say we want to make a new post. Well, these two fields down here at the bottom, the created at and updated at, are automatically handled by Doctrine. So that's stuff that we don't want to mess with. We don't really want people to change those. So we need to get rid of those. And how we're actually going to go ahead and do that is, if you look at all the folders, you're going to see the lib drive or the lib folder, and then you're going to see a couple different folders in it: filter, form, migration, model, vendor. Filter, those are actually forms that I'll show you one of those. So this right over here, this is actually our post form filter, but what we actually want is the post form. You can find that in the form doctrine. You see here, post form. So you open up that, and you're going to see this function configure, which what this does is it lets you configure the different fields. You can unset fields, you can add fields, but this is basically how you do forms. And what we actually want to do is unset a couple. Okay, and now if I reload this page, you're going to see the created at and updated at disappear, which is what we want, because all we want to be able to enter in is title and body. So let's go ahead and do a couple of those real quick. Okay, and right now I just have two, so let me get rid of some of these real quick. Okay, now we want to go back to our front end app modules, the default module we created earlier, and now we want to do some code so whenever people actually go to this page, they're actually going to see those posts. So how we do that? Well, Symfony comes with this nice little thing called a doctrine pager. I'm not going to wait for that. And we give it our model, which is our post model. We tell it 20, which that's how many per page, which you don't even really need that. You can change it. You can work with it later. If I can spell right. And once I type this out, I will actually go over what I'm doing. But like I said, I'm really, really bad at talking and typing, as you can tell. Okay. What this actually does is whenever you name a variable like this and then assign it, you can actually access them in your template file. So in our template file, we actually have access to pager, which if we just name this variable pager, we wouldn't be able to do that. So that's why we have it this pager. Okay. And I went ahead and commented out this line, and I'm actually going to go back here for a sec. And I will explain this code here in a sec. Yeah, I'm trying to kind of think what's going on. Okay. Not sure why I put that there. Okay. What I'm actually doing is Symfony actually comes with quite a few different helpers. One of these being date, which is actually what we want to use for whenever we format the created at, is we're actually going to use this created at field. So we want to format that date. So that's why this is here. And all this pager is doing is getting everything out of the post table. Doesn't really do it in any particular order. It's actually going to be the same order as this, which is what we don't want, but that's how it's going to work. So as you can see, there are the titles. Well, they don't mean anything. I just kind of type stuff in, but you can see the titles here in the back end. Here's the front end. So we actually want to do, let's actually go ahead and make a partial for this. What's a partial file is, it's just a little snippet of code, and all partial files are going to be named underscore whatever you want to call it, and then .php, and those actually go in with the templates. So this is what we're actually going to use to format our post with. So just let me put some more code in here real quick, and then I will actually show you how to use one of these. Okay. And the last thing we need is what it actually says. So okay. And I think it's good practice to actually put the helpers that you're actually going to use in the file that they're actually used in. And this is how you include a partial. And I will explain this in one sec. Okay, so with our pager, for basically all this says is for every single result that it pulls, we include the partial that's named post, which is going to be this file. And this is the variables that we're actually going to have access to in that file. So post is going to correspond with post variable, which you can see here, here, here. We want to use the helper in this file, the date helper, and this format date. This function is actually coming from that helper. So if we run this again, there it is. And that's the format date. See, the thing is, we actually want to have them ordered by the created at time instead of just the ID when they were created. Kind of the opposite of how they're getting pulled now. So this is how we do that. And what this is saying is telling doctrine to get the post table, and we want to make a query. We want to order it by the created at field in descending order. Now we need to tell the pager to use this. Okay. Oops. It's kind of always a good practice to kind of look over your code and make sure that you don't screw something up. So now if we come back, these should be flipped. Yeah. So this is the most recent one we created. So if we come back here and we want to make another one, this is the most recent post. Let's do the foobar kind of stuff I always forget about. So, okay. That's been created now, so if we reload the page, you'll actually see it. It's up here at the top. And let's see. So that's pretty much it. I try to kind of hit a little bit of everything. I'm actually going to do a couple more videos and kind of get more in depth with a couple different things. Really did not want this to take as long as it did. But that's pretty much it, guys. So if you have any questions, comments, anything like that, you can always send me an email. And you can send me an email at joshua.estes@scenicitylabs.com. And also, this awesome presentation is sponsored by Scenic City Labs. So you can actually check out the website at scenicitylabs.com. And then also another website you guys should definitely check out is ChattanoogaDevelopers.com. It's just kind of local developers that are in Chattanooga. I'm going to try and get a couple other people to do some posts or some presentations or just talks or something with different kind of maybe Django or possibly Ruby for all you Ruby fanboys out there. Maybe. Also want to give out mad props to horriblelogos.com for making this awesome Chattanooga Developers logo. But before I go, I actually want to talk to you about a couple different resources that are available. You've got the Symphony website, which you can find the documentation on there. The API documentation sucks. I never use it. So check out those books. They're really good reads. Another website which I'm not sure if a lot of people know about is symphonycheck.org, which is this site right here. And it's kind of just like a checklist of things to get your website ready. So you can kind of go over that, and it's symphony-check.org. And also what we were using is Doctrine. Doctrine project, I think. Yeah, Doctrine project. And Symphony 1. That's not Doctrine. Okay, Symfony actually comes with Doctrine 1.2, and if you go to the Doctrine's website, you'll actually get some documentation. Make sure you're using 1.2. They have a pretty awesome API, and they also have a book, just like Symfony does. You can actually go ahead and buy it, which I really did not want to go to Amazon. Okay, but the cool thing about these books is you can read them for free online or actually buy them. I would recommend buy them just to kind of show some support, and also, books are awesome. You don't always have access to the internet, so buy the books, read them. Got a lot of information in them. But that is it. So until next time, I will see you guys later, and I really do appreciate everybody for watching, and y'all have a good one.